They leaving. Shakur, they leaving. They leaving, Shakur. They going.
What really happened? Shakur Stevenson versus Artem Harutyunyan. The realest breakdown that you will find. I got him. Let's go. Now, just for a quick disclaimer, some of you guys are not keeping it real with Mr. Shakur Stevenson. In this video, I'm going to give you guys the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I guess let's start with the good. Make sure you guys subscribe. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss a thing. The good for Shakur is he stays undefeated. He is now a free agent, so he's able to explore his options. And full disclosure, Shakur Stevenson dominated the fight, winning mostly every round, right? He won most of the rounds for sure. So the right person won, Shakur Stevenson won, he stays undefeated. And Shakur, his output was a bit better than his last fight. And he looked like he was trying to be more crowd pleasing, if you will, which gets to the bad and the ugly, which I'll talk about. Stay tuned to the end of this video. And all in all, it was a better showing and a better effort than the Edwin De Los Santos performance, which was really an abysmal fight. But in saying that, let's talk about the bad and the ugly. It was better than Edwin De Los Santos, that particular fight, but not by a wide margin, if you will. Here's why. The tempo of the fight, Shakur Stevenson actually, he seemed like in some of the early rounds, like the first 3 rounds or so, that he had a hard time getting a read on Artem Harutyunyan. So rounds 1 and 2 particularly were extremely lackluster, and there wasn't really much going on. Shakur Stevenson, he was tentative. Artem Harutyunyan, like round 1 was, you know, I have heard of filler rounds, but this was like next level, like filler rounds squared, right? There was just like very little action, whatever. Sometimes it happens. But even the second round pretty much followed the same thing. So the first 2 rounds really weren't, there was no excitement or anything crazy. No one landed any crazy shots that I can remember. But as the fight progressed, I think both fighters started to settle in, and Shakur Stevenson, he started to become more encouraged. He started to let his hands go a bit more. And by round 3 or 4-ish, I don't have all my rounds memorized, Shakur Stevenson finally landed like double digits, or through his CompuBox was up, if you will. And I think it was like 10 punches that he threw or landed. So, okay, his output increased. So Shakur Stevenson started to build on that. And by round, I want to say round 6, I don't have all my rounds memorized, but I did watch the fight in its entirety. Around round 6-ish, Shakur Stevenson started to land and hit the target, and he started working that up. And I want to say round 6 through about maybe an 8, Shakur Stevenson, you seen some of the sparks of what Shakur got praised for, or maybe even Shakur letting his hands go in the lighter division. So I'm like, okay, let's see where he can take this. Unfortunately for Shakur, he really took it back to the same thing that had him receiving criticism. And somehow, some way, the fight after that point, after it looked like Shakur was doing some good work, I don't think Shakur was fully comfortable in that. So he kind of reverted back to his true form, which was to, you know, kind of play it safe and look for openings. And he just wasn't all the way comfortable leading. That's what it looked like to me. So the fight, the beginning of the fight was boring, and then the end of the fight was boring. And then that small section in the middle, rounds 6 through 8-ish, right, where Shakur was starting to let his hands go and stuff, you were getting little rises out of the crowd, and it was more action. But then he couldn't sustain it, so the fight kind of fell flat. Did Shakur win? Absolutely. Did he win convincingly? Absolutely. Was it a fight that you would ever want to watch again or entertaining? Absolutely not. And this is why I'm saying this is the bad for Shakur Stevenson. The bad for Shakur Stevenson is he keeps finding himself in this exact situation. And for me, I really believe, and I strongly believe this, Shakur Stevenson is almost not comfortable in his style. He's almost in between two styles, if you will. And I will explain. So Shakur Stevenson, his normal, what makes him feel probably at home is to be what people are saying and have labeled as boring. But Shakur Stevenson not liking that criticism and or not being able to take that criticism, he's tried to up the ante, and to be honest, it didn't look right. So in those later rounds, you start seeing Shakur becoming more offensive and trying to push the stoppage almost to the point where Shakur Stevenson started to lose some of his form, and it made him look worse because it seemed almost unnatural. I remember I had an ex-girlfriend and she liked the American Idol way back in the day, right? And sometimes on American Idol, it would be someone and you just kind of look at them and you know they can't like really sing. Like just, you could tell that it was probably going to be a goofy audition. And then they would tell Paul Abdul, Simon, and Randy, they would tell what song they were about to do, and it would be just too big of a song. Like, it doesn't look, just from, judge a book by its cover, it doesn't look like this person could really sing. And then they say, oh, I'm going to do I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston. And you're like, let's see it. Let's hear it. And then, as expected, and then you're like, what the heck? You know what I mean? And you could tell immediately that the song was too big for them. They don't have the range to be doing that. That's kind of how I felt with Shakur Stevenson. I think he's dealing with the criticism and being young, and he's trying to people please. Plus, he has a big mouth, no Diddy, of course, but he has a big mouth in terms of like the preamble, the talks, and I'm the nicest, I'm the best, and I'm gonna show y'all. And that ultimately is what is getting Shakur in a lot of trouble. And I've said this before. In fact, check the timestamps. I said this before the fight. I tweeted out, look at the times. This is 2:51 before the fight even happened. I think something that gets Shakur Stevenson and Generation Z, Gen Z in trouble a lot is the need to talk and preview things. Shakur Stevenson puts a ton of pressure on himself, and you just gotta fight your fight. But Shakur will talk like he's Tank Davis stylistically, insist on a knockout, and what happens if you cannot deliver that? You'll be judged. But if you said nothing, just go out there and try to win it, and it would at least be better than having this whole preamble, in my opinion, #ego. Spot on. I must be the greatest. I shook up the world. I'm really him, the best to do it on this mic. I told you exactly what the problem was before the problem reared its ugly head into the mix. Gen Z and people like Shakur Stevenson, and now we get into the ugly. I gave y'all the good, I gave y'all the bad, let's get into the ugly. So I told you what the problem was before the fight happened. You're talking too much. You keep insisting on a knockout, and you cannot deliver that. That is not your style. I've said it from the beginning. Fight your fight. Tank Davis has put a lot of pressure on these ninjas. I said that too because I'm the greatest. I'm the best in the business, and it's not even close. Tank Davis set the bar high for these ninjas. LOL. Tank Davis is so dynamic. He's boxing well. He's not getting dropped. He's not looking bad. He's not losing. And he's exciting. He's the best bang for your buck in boxing right now. You probably will get a knockout. You'll at least get some flashy and dazzling explosive stuff. Somebody probably getting hurt, and you might get a backflip or something else, some Rey Mysterio stuff after. Tank Davis is doing this to these dudes. Shakur Stevenson, Keyshawn Davis, Devin Haney, all these guys, it's like they're trying to. Keyshawn Davis literally just said, I'll knock Tank's lil butt out, right? And then you're life and death with a top ranked special, Drano Madueno, or whatever dude's name is. And you're going life and death with him and looking like tired in spots of the fight. You can't knock him out, but then you're going to knock Tank out. Doesn't sound believable. Devin Haney, same thing. Devin Haney ended up fighting Ryan Garcia, who Tank had already conquered, and he initially ends up losing, and then Devin Haney gets it overturned. But the defense looked lackey, it looked leaky versus Ryan Garcia. You still look susceptible to a whole lot that Ryan was throwing. You got hit with some silly ish. Now Shakur Stevenson, he was in the mid rounds, as I stated, he was starting to put it on Artem Harutyunyan, maybe even hurt him, but he just doesn't know how to close the show and finish, or he's not all the way comfortable with it. So it just stays there and it stays stuck. And it's funny because these dudes, like at least Shakur and Keyshawn Davis, their big homie, their big brother is Terrence Crawford. And they spend a lot of time around Terrence Crawford. But an obvious difference is Terrence Crawford has been a killer. Terrence Crawford is one of the best finishers in all of boxing. So to spend that much, and I know each person's different, but even to spend that much time with a killer like Terrence Crawford, who if he smells blood, he gonna go get you, right? One of the best finishers in boxing currently, and then not pick up some of these things in terms of like, hey, bud, how are you doing that? How are you seizing the moment and capturing that to the point where, because I was at when Bud fought John Molina Jr. I went to Omaha for that. So I was at that fight. Bud don't play around with you. Like if it's John Molina, he's a dangerous puncher. You got to just get him out of there. So as soon as Bud seen the opportunity, laced him, and then we all left, and you know, it was a wrap. But Shakur is in there able to maybe hurt somebody. Same thing with Devin and Regis Prograis. Able to hurt him, but then can't close the show. And here's the difference. The real killers in boxing, they don't talk about it as much. Crawford, he don't really talk about, like, Crawford's no punk. So if you push him, he'll bite back and bark back, right? And that's what you would expect from a fighter, right? But he don't like go out of his way to do a bunch of extra stuff, but he delivers on fight night. He will if confronted, like Jose Benavidez, and it's a real chippy buildup. But most often, he just cool, and then he just whoop you and then collect his check and leave. Same thing with Artur Beterbiev. Beterbiev is not on Twitter. That's why they say Shakur Twitterson. Beterbiev really will smoke you, smoking on top fives. Smoking, I'm that guy. I'm gonna take 10 steps and I'm smoking on top fives, right? Beterbiev will really go get you and really get you out of there, but he's not tweeting about it and talking about it in every interview. Same goes for just pretty much everyone. Gervonta Davis. There's moments where Gervonta Davis will be like, I'm gonna knock him out, but that's because he got a feel for what the guy's bringing and he knows he can actually do it. But the ugly for Shakur Stevenson is he's like, I believe in the laws of attraction. I believe in the laws of the universe. But with that being said, I also believe in being realistic, right? I don't believe you could just wish for it and then it'll happen. Like, oh, I just want $1 million in my account, but you're doing nothing positive to move in that direction. You're not going to get the $1 million. But I believe the universe is very giving. So if you implement a game plan and a strategy of how you're going to get there, and you're putting the positive steps in that direction, then of course it can happen. This new generation is doing a lot of yapping. They get on social media, Shakur included, and they start talking about knockouts and stuff. And I look at it, I'm like, you're not even really a big puncher. Like I said in this tweet, be who you are. That's it. You just got to be who you are. And I think that's why Shakur is in between two styles. You're trying to compete with Tank Davis. You're trying to contend and contest the criticism. And it had you in this Artem Harutyunyan fight where you were kind of losing your form, and Artem was started landing somehow after a couple rounds before. It looked like potentially if you were a Crawford or a Gervonta Davis, you probably would have been able to figure out the puzzle to stop him. But let me explain this too, because there's a lot of bums that try to act like Boxingego don't know what he's talking about, and or what I'm saying don't make sense. So let's use a couple analogies and make this real crystal clear, shall we? The counter to what I've been saying is, oh, come on, Ego. Shakur dominated. Oh my gosh. Not everyone's going to be a knockout artist, Ego. No, Sherlock. I'm not expecting everybody to be a natural born puncher. However, I'm a student of this game to know you don't even need the most punching power to get certain things done. Like, let's say a body shot. A body shot doesn't even require a bunch of pressure to hurt someone to the body. That's facts. You can ask any boxer. If you get hit and timed and hit well to the body, that's gonna take an elephant down. It don't matter if you did sit-ups. If it's timed right, like look at Amir Khan. He ain't no big, huge puncher. He had Maidana almost out of there when they fought with the wicked fast body shot, and Maidana dropped to the ground, and he looked like De La Hoya versus B-Hop. So that's an example. Tim Bradley, he's not a big puncher. Tim Bradley versus Brandon Rios. He was able, with a good game plan, to stop Brandon Rios, who has an iron chin. He had an iron chin in his day, right? Tim Bradley stopped him to the body. So don't give me that, oh, everyone's not a knockout artist. Lomachenko, he's another person. Lomachenko in his very last fight just stopped George Kambosos, who had never been stopped before. And Loma is a guy who came from featherweight just like Shakur Stevenson. Loma is not the biggest puncher at lightweight at all. But with a good game plan and a strategy and wearing your opponent down, you could get more done or at least inflict more pain. Let's keep it going. LHC, man. Let him cook. So the other angle is this. So I've already illustrated how you don't have to be the craziest, biggest puncher to get something done. But besides that, here's the other thing that a lot of you buffoons are missing when you're trying to act like what I'm saying don't make sense. Is, oh, come on, Ego. Not everyone's going to be a knockout artist. All you guys talk about is knockouts. Here's the thing. If you're not that, then don't pretend to be. It's just like Tekashi or CJ. If you're not really in a gang and you're not really affiliated and you're not really initiated, then don't act like you're in a gang. This is the same rule. I'm from Cali, bro. The same rules apply to being gang related. If you're not about that life, then don't say you're about that life. Don't go up here, throwing up signs and flagging and, set tripping and going to neighborhoods, creating issues. And then no one will confuse that. Or you have a better chance of people not confusing it. So for Shakur Stevenson, back to my earlier point, Gen Z, Shakur Stevenson, they go on social media and just want to rant and tweet. And literally throughout this Artem Harutyunyan fight, Shakur Stevenson in the pre-build, before the fight, in the fight, like in real time, he literally kept saying, oh, I'm going to stop him. Watch I stop him. Oh, watch how I stop him. I'm going to stop him. There's even a point in this fight where I'm pretty sure Shakur Stevenson says, I will retire if I don't stop him. He said that to his grandfather, right? And guess what? You already faked the retirement once. Are you going to stay true and retire because you said that? Nobody made Shakur see. That's what I'm saying. Like, this generation is soft. They don't want to, they get mad when they get talked to. And when I do the video, y'all say, oh, you hate this person. You hate that. I don't hate anyone. Shakur ain't done nothing to me, but I'm going to keep it real with my audience. A lot of y'all ain't keeping it real. Shakur Stevenson is bringing this criticism on himself. Be you, be who you are. Say my defense. Like, why don't you lean in on the defense part? Because I think his defense looks superb. Like his control of distance and ring IQ and that type of stuff. It was good. Like Artem had a very hard time hitting him. Lean in on that. But you're leaning in like you an offensive monster, like you David Benavidez, the Mexican monster or something like that. And then you can't produce what you're saying, which I predicted. You guys see on the screen, I predicted it. So I'm not trying to hear that. Oh, Shakur, why are you guys treating him like that? Nobody's treating him like anything. Imagine Barry Bonds. And before every game, after every inning, when his team was up, let's say the San Francisco Giants, Barry Bonds kept saying he's going to hit a home run. Oh, I'm going to hit a home run. Watch. Oh, this is going to be 400 feet. Oh, man. Oh, home run derby. Right? I'm going to crack this one out the park. Barry Bonds keeps saying it, and then he don't ever deliver it. It would be the same thing. And then now you integrate social media because Barry Bonds played in an era where it wasn't really social media heavy. Then you have a recipe for a disaster. Nobody wants to hear Barry Bonds talk about the home runs. We just want to see it. If you're able to stop these guys, show us. That's it. Shakur's not doing that. He's talking about it. And that's another part of the ugly. Speaking of talking, if you know me, like a lot of y'all don't know me, but I'm saying if you know my channel, I've always been heavy on this. And I've tweeted about it. I've talked about it in videos. I personally do not like when you only have a minute between the rounds and the fighter's doing a lot of talking. What do you even have a team for if you're going to over talk them? Shakur Stevenson was doing exactly that. There were in between the rounds, and I was hearing more of Shakur talking than his grandfather. Why do you have him in your corner if he can't say what he needs to say and what he's seeing as his second set of eyes from the outside looking in? Because shout out to Shakur's gramps, but it sounded like he had some pretty good things to say, but Shakur kept talking. He kept talking like, oh man, I'm gonna knock him out. Oh, he just keep running. Why are you talking so much? You know what I mean? And I think the pressure is getting to Shakur Stevenson where he knew based on his last performance and he's seen the criticism. So he was desperate and thirsty for the knockout or to look scintillating. Plus, like I said earlier, Tank putting a lot of pressure on these dudes in or around his division. You look at Teofimo, Steve Claggett, you look at Devin Haney's last outing, you look at Shakur Stevenson, Keyshawn Davis. Tank is set the bar really high. Tank is the gold standard. He's not getting touched up and he's knocking people out and the crowd is paying to see it and feel like they got their money's worth, period. So Shakur Stevenson, he was yapping way too much to his grandpa, and maybe he needs a new trainer if you guys have that type of dynamic where you're not willing to listen to him because you're just so close, that's family or something, where you're not going to listen to what he says. And he's like, man, I know you want me to knock him out, but man, he's durable. And he kept talking and talking. I'm like, where do they do that at? That's some Newark stuff. I never seen like people over talk their trainers so frequently. And to me, that was one of the real ugly parts of this fight that nobody's talking about but Boxingego. Y'all not keeping it real like me, bro, when it comes to this boxing. I don't have a horse in the race. I'm just telling you what I seen. And I didn't like that Shakur kept talking back to his trainer. What is that even about? And you notice the tempo and the tenor of what he was saying kept changing. At first, he was going back to the corner and he was sounding very confident, like, man, watch, I'm gonna knock him out. Man, I'm gonna retire if I don't knock him out. And he kept pushing that. And then when he started seeing that Artem Harutyunyan had never even been knocked down and never been dropped, and it didn't look like he was going anywhere, then Shakur started changing his tune. Man, this guy, he just keep running. Every time I'm getting close, but he keep running. And it sound pretty bad to me. It sound pretty pitiful that you have a fighter and he's so eagerly and so thirsty to try to get this knockout that he's just sounding like, I feel like Shakur Stevenson, he's probably a good dad, a good person. I feel like he lacks self-awareness. Like, you don't understand how bad that sounds, where you just said you're going to retire if you don't knock him out and knock out this and that. And then now you're complaining that he's not standing still and stuff. Why does Gervonta Davis or David Benavidez, well, they're not complaining. Better Biev ain't complaining about people running because they got real deal power and they got fancy offenses. So they're not complaining about what the person is doing and stuff. So to me, that's a cop-out. If you are who you say you are, better than Tank and, you know, the best lightweight and things like that, then people aren't trying to hear that, point blank period. Oh, he ran. Because people have said that. That's what Edwin De Los Santos said about you. He said you ran, you know, and then now You're saying Harutyunyan ran, but at the highest level, elite level, then why didn't you anticipate this? Why, if you predicted that he was going to run and you know you don't have that much power, then why did you predict a knockout? And you said it throughout the fight, during the fight, etc. Just think about that. You said he was going to run before the fight. And during the fight, you said he's running. So why wouldn't you have a game plan for a person doing what you said before you even got in the ring with them they were going to do? Isn't that like reverse engineering? Like, you know, a person's move before they make it. You could just reverse engineer that and be like, okay, he's going to run, so I got to cut off the ring. I got to do this. I'm a jab. I'm going to hit him with 40 body shots to slow him down. Like, wouldn't you have a game plan if you knew a person was going to do that? Doesn't make sense. So Shakur pandering and say, man, this guy, I know you want the knockout, but I can't get it, after all this hoopla about getting a knockout. And then you wonder why Shakur is scrutinized and people are trying to blame it on everything but Shakur, but it's him talking. Again, just be who you are. If that's boring, if that's exciting, you just got to fight your fight. I've always said that on my channel. Y'all not keeping it real. And then you have a contingent of fan who's trying to make this into like another issue, like victimhood issue, like it's a black thing. Listen, there are definite racists in the sport of boxing. I've always campaigned to push these people out of boxing. We see it on pound for pound list. We know when there's real racist behavior. Like all that bullshit Ryan did, that's intolerable. That's insufferable. Nobody is advocating for that. Nobody's backing Ryan Garcia with this racist rant. I get that. I'll always fight for the real issues. But then the problem comes when you have people who try to push this narrative that Shakur Stevenson is the victim of just outright racist. Are there some racists that ain't feeling Shakur that leave stupid comments? Absolutely. Any black fighter will get that. But you can't relegate that only to racism in Shakur's particular case. Here's how I could prove that. Because you have people of the culture, of the same hue and same skin tone, aka blacks, who are all saying the same thing about Shakur Stevenson. A person that went to the fight, rapper Fabio Foreign, was asked about the fight, and he literally said, man, I mean, Shakur, he just got to do more. He got to put some stuff together, put some action to it. I'm from the hood. I like action, period. That's what he said. So this is a rapper. So you're not going to just say everybody is racist and that's why their opinion is this way on Shakur Stevenson. Basketball player Nick Young, he black. He said this fight was ass. It was trash. And there's millions or thousands of fans that watch the fight of different creeds, colors, and nationalities and heritage and stuff that all share the simple and same sentiments. Boring is boring, or a good, exciting fight is a good, exciting fight. Like, I don't care if Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal were white, Chinese, Mexican, blurple, black. I don't care what they were. It was a better fight than Shakur Stevenson, And I think it messes up the message when people try to turn everything into something that is not. Shakur, I've already explained how he's bringing criticism on himself. Like I said with the Barry Bonds example, you put the pressure on yourself when you say you're going to get the home run. That's what people are expecting. People love home runs. It is what it is. Shakur Stevenson, no one told him to keep talking about a knockout. Nobody told him to say it before the fight, during the fight, throughout the fight, in between each round. If you're capable of getting a knockout, just go in and knock him out. And then you won't look crazy at the end like Shakur Stevenson does. Man, Artem Harutyunyan came in shape. He was in shape. When Frank Martin fought him, he wasn't in shape. Bro, why are you comparing? Like, Frank Martin almost knocked him out. You never dropped him. Frank Martin did. So you got to live with the criticism, especially when you bring the criticism on your own self. It's like Evel Knievel. If he says he could do a stunt and then he can't do it, then you're going to get criticized by the papers. Like, man, he said he could do this jump and he can't do it. It's that simple. You don't want that? Don't be in the spotlight. You don't want that? At best, don't put more pressure on yourself by saying you're going to do something you can't do. And like I said, you got people who are messing up the message for real racial issues in the sport of boxing because they're trying to throw Shakur Stevenson. First, they said Shakur was Puerto Rican and like that he was claiming Puerto Rican. And then now they saying that people is against Shakur because he's black. But this is not, it has nothing to do with him being black. With most people, fun fights are fun fights. 504 and Nick Young. There's other people who are saying that. There's other people saying like, oh, you can't beat Tank. Things like that. Stephen A. Smith, right? There's other people who are saying it. So you can't just relegate it to racist non-black people that are saying this stuff about Shakur Stevenson. His own crowd was walking out of the fight, you know? And I seen some of the people leaving were black people. You can listen to me, you can listen to whoever you want. ESPN, Top Rank, they showed it. There's people who saying, oh, people weren't leaving, they left after the fight only. There's lit as cap because literally on the telecast, ESPN shows the camera and then the camera shows people walking out and the 12th round hadn't even started. So you can, oh, no one left early. You literally see droves of people making a beeline and exit out the venue. It is what it is. So, and he was getting booed at home. So those are all non-black boos. You know what I mean? And you got a lot of weakness in this society where if you keep it real, then people will just try to throw any label on what you saying. Like if you say that, oh, you're cooning, this had nothing to do with cooning. We stand up for any real issue, but fun fights are fun fights. Exciting fights are exciting fights. Like I said, Tank put a lot of pressure on these dudes. And entering free agency off of that performance, I don't think it really helped Shakur Stevenson. Even though he won, nobody's doubting that you won. You fought a guy off of a loss. And part of it is like, why did Top Rank even put him in? It showed you they didn't really care. Why would you even put him in with a style that could even remotely be tricky like a Artem Harutyunyan? So I don't even think they were really pulling for Shakur to look fancy because you could have gave him a cupcake. How many times did Shakur, like in the pandemic, Shakur fought an unknown fake Miguel Cotto looking dude, right? You could have gave him another one of those for a little farewell hometown fight. But you gave him someone like Artem Harutyunyan, who is real jittery, fidgety, really squirrely. So I don't think Top Rank really cared about him looking good. And then, like I said, Shakur put pressure on himself by fighting how he fought and stating before the fact that he was going to get knockouts and stuff. So I think it's a classic case of the pre-fight hype not matching the performance. And it be like that. If you say you could do something, like let's say Ego said, I'm gonna get that girl's phone number and I'm gonna sleep with her on the first night and stuff like that. That's what people are gonna hold me to, that standard, period. If I get shut down and I don't even so much as get the phone number, then that would make me look bad because I assured people that I was gonna take this lady home at this club. I was gonna get her, I was gonna bag her. And then if you can't do that, then you can't do that. But had you said nothing, that's what I'm trying to help this new generation because they seem all in their devices and their phones and technology, etc. And at the end of the day, it's not looking good. You know what I mean? You say you could bag that chick, people are gonna expect it. If you said nothing and you just walked over to the chick, talked to her, you get an answer, maybe you get her, maybe you don't, then you don't look so bad. So Shakur Stevenson, as far as I'm concerned, his talk and like the motor mouth stuff is what has people criticizing him. It's not just that he won. You fought a guy off a loss. Like this wasn't even a world beater. And then Artem was touching you in the later part of the fight because you were trying to push the issue and get a knockout or whatever you were trying to do. And it seemed like it was weird. The tenor of the fight was weird because the first part of the fight was dry. The mid fight, Shakur started to come alive and then it immediately died and he couldn't sustain it. So then the end was, again, people were leaving prematurely and stuff like that. You think people are going to go to a Gervonta Davis show where one punch he's shown you can change anything? He knocked out Gamboa. I was at that fight. He knocked him out in the 12th round. Do you honestly think that anybody would leave a Tank fight prematurely? They paid all that money to go to the fight, and then they're going to leave a Tank fight prematurely knowing he could put someone's lights out? I mean, it's just unheard of. It's unheard of. Tank got a stoppage in the Gamboa fight in the final round, and Gamboa was in survival mode. Tank didn't cry about it to his corner. You know, his corner was like, put the knife in them. Man, we could do this too. Right? Tank wasn't crying after every round like, oh man, Gamboa, his ankle messed up, so he's just trying to survive. He's just trying to catch me with single shots and survive. But Shakur, he does too much explaining, and I told you that. And I think that's a bad look, because you're not gonna beat the internet, people. You're not gonna beat the internet. The internet, they feel how they feel. They're saying what they said. They're judging you how they judge. And you're trying to explain and bring up other people and say, oh, Frank Martin, you woke up from the dead and all this type of stuff. Frank Martin woke up from the dead versus Tank. Why do these other fighters say that Tank is not that dude, but then they keep celebrating his victories in a covert way, right? Devin Haney put out shirts that say Mexicans for Haney, right? And the shirt depicted Ryan Garcia quitting versus Tank Davis. It said, Mexicans for Haney, Ryan Garcia is not La Raza. But the whole concept of the shirt was Ryan Garcia being stopped by Tank. And Devin Haney even said it in the press conference. He was like, you quit like a beezy, right? Then now you have Shakur Stevenson responding to Frank Martin, who put ZZZs emoji. Like, we all knew what Frank Martin was referring to, but he didn't even, it was a subliminal. So why is Shakur even responding to that? He didn't tag you. He didn't like make it official that he was even sleepy because of that. And then you sending all these tweets like, man, you woke up from the dead. But he woke up from the dead versus Tank Davis. You didn't do that to him. You know what I mean? So all this over explaining, this generation look bad. You just got to accept it. Make your bed, lie in it. You promised to knock out. And I told y'all he wasn't going to knock out Artem Harutyunyan. Y'all said I was tripping, I was hating, and I was, oh man, you're going to see Shakur going to put it on him. You guys are giving fighters credit for things that they haven't really shown the propensity to achieve. Shakur's a good fighter for sure, but he has to get over the hurdle and, you know, figure out his style, or just be comfortable with his style and just fight his fight. And that's the realest breakdown.